Hey students, we are starting topic 3 today, and our learning goal is I can multiply greater numbers by powers of 10. If you don't have your workbook or a pencil, please go get both, and we are on page 81. Okay, let's read the solve and share together, and then I will have you pause, try to solve through the problem on your own, and then we will check our answers together. At Izzy's party store, party invitations come in packages of 8. How many invitations are in 10 packages? 100 packages? 1,000 packages? Solve this problem any way you choose. Go ahead and pause here and try to come up with those 3 answers. Okay, so in our first part of the problem, it says that invitations come in packages of 8. So it wants to know how many are in 10 packages. Well, I have to take that 8 10 times. Well, 8 times 10 is 80. So there would be 80 invitations in 10 packages. Then it wants to know in 100. So if I do 8 times 100, I would have 800. So there's 800 invitations in 100 packages. And so you might start to see a pattern in here. When we have 1 0, when we're multiplying 8 by a multiple of 10, then we've got 80. When we have 8 times 100, we've got 2 zeros in 100, so 2 zeros in 800. Our last one is 8 times 1,000, and so that would be 8,000. We'd have 8,000 invitations in 1,000 packages. So today is all about multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000, and we're going to be reviewing a little bit our exponents and powers of 10. Go ahead and flip over to page 83, and we are going to talk through, 82, sorry. We are going to talk through our virtual learning bridge on here. So, the value of each place in a number is 10 times the value to the right, which is something we've been talking about all year. The place value chart shows this relationship for the number 4. Look at the pattern. So, our 4 starts in our ones place. It gets 10 times greater when it moves over to our tens, and we add a 0 in there. So this is 10 times greater than 4. Okay, well, when it moves over to the 100 spots, this 4 is 10 times greater than the 4 in the tens. So 400 is 10 times greater than 40. And then again, it's moving over to the 1000s, and so 4,000 is 10 times greater than 400. So every time it's moving over 1, it's getting 10 times greater than the 1 to the right of it. Finally, it goes to the 40,000, and that is 10 times greater than 4,000. And then we have 400,000, and that's 10 times greater than 40,000. Looking down at the bottom of the page, it says find 32 by 1, 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. So 32 times 1 is just 32 ones, or 32. And any number times 1 is just the other number. Now 32 times 10 would be 32 tens, or 320. And you'll notice we had 1 0 here in our tens. We have 1 0 added on to our other number that we're multiplying by. Well, if you think about it as like multiplying it by 1 and then adding a 0, you're adding that 0 over there. 32 times 100 is 32 hundredths, or 3,200. People also say that number without the comma, 3,200. Either way is right. So then 32 times 1,000, we have 3 red zeros, so we're going to have 3 zeros on the end. It's 32,000, 32, 0, 0, 0, or 32,000. And then we have 32 times 10,000. Well, I have 4 red zeros, so I need 4 red zeros at my end. So we have 32 10,000s, and so we have 320,000 right there. And so it's our 320, 0, 0, 0. You got to make sure you have those 4 red zeros that match the 4 in our 10,000. So the product ends with the same number of zeros as the power of 10. Okay, now we are getting into our exponents a little bit. So 32 times 1 is the same as 32 times 10 to the power of 0, because that just means times 1. So there's 0 tens there. 32 times 10 is the same as 32, I might write over this, times 10 to the power of 1. And so that means we're going to have 1 0 added on to the end of it, leave our 32 alone. 32 times 10 or times 100 would be 32 times 10 to the power of 2. Well, that just means I'm going to have 2 zeros on there because 10 to the power of 2, that's the same as 100. 32 times, 10 to the power of 3 is going to give me 3 zeros on the end. So we have that 32,000. And then finally, we have 32 times 10 to the power of 4, which is the same as at 10,000. And so the 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros that we have in 10,000 is the same as the exponent, is the same as how many zeros we add to the end. So our pattern here is the exponent tells how many additional zeros the product will end with. So really today we are adding zeros. And when you're adding the zeros, you're really multiplying it by those powers of 10, but that can be the pattern that you start to notice. Okay, we are over on our guided practice. Number 1 says, so open to page 83. Make sure you're writing down what I'm writing down. We're going to do some together. I'm going to give you a couple to do on your own. How many zeros will there be in the product of 39 times 1,000? How many zeros will there be in the product of 50 times 1,000? Okay, so if I look at this, 39 times 1,000. Well, I'd start with my 39, and I have to add these 3 zeros to it. So how many zeros do we have there? 3. My next step is 50 times 1,000, but this one is a little trickier. We are starting with our 50, and now I need to add 3 more zeros. So what are you noticing about the number of zeros in 50 times 1,000? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 zeros in 50 times 1,000. Where did that extra zero come from? Because in both of these, we're multiplying by 1,000. So think about it. Where could that extra zero have come from? Well, it's right here. In our 50, there's a 0. And so you have to include that 0 in the original number and then add those extra zeros onto it. So it says, and our next one, explain how to find the product of 90 times 10 to the power of 4. So what we're going to look at is our first we're going to look at our exponent. So 10 to the power of 4, how many zeros is that going to add on? Well, our pattern on the previous slide was the exponent tells how many additional zeros the product will end with. So I know I need to have 4 zeros on the end of it. So I'm going to start with my 90, and I will add 4 zeros. And so then our final answer is 900,000. So we can say start with 90 and then add. And another word for add that they use in this math curriculum a lot is annex. And one thing Ms. Collins thinks of, there was a building that we called the annex in high school because it was like an additional building that was included in the school. But honestly, kids went there for detention on Saturday mornings. And I remember one time my friend Emily had to go to the annex building because she was tardy all the time. So annex or additional or add is how Ms. Collins thinks of it. So start with the 90 and add or annex 4 zeros. There we go. So annex is that vocab word in there that you might see. Okay, we are going to work through number 3 together, and then 3 and 4, and then I'm going to leave you with, I don't want to leave you with that one. I'm going to give you some extra one to do over on the side. So my first one is 60 times 1, so I know that's just going to be 60. 60 times 100, well, I'm going to have to add 2 zeros to that, right? So we have our 60, and I'm going to add 1 0, 2 0. And then we have 60 times 10,000. So I'm going to start with my 60, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros that I'm going to have to add. And so we get 600,000 for our answer. And so that was because the 60 had a 0 in with it, so we started with different zeros. Okay, 13 times what power of 10 would be 13,000? Well, this has 1, 2, 3 zeros in my answer, so I'm going to have my 1 with 3 zeros, and that's because the 13 didn't have any zeros in it. So 13 times 1,000 would be 13,000. All right, this one, we are looking at what number times 10 to the power of 4 is going to be 100,000. Well, what I'm going to do is cross off some zeros. I know 4 of the zeros came from my 10 to the power of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's just going to be 10 times 10 to the power of 4 because that's what's left over here. Okay, I want you to write down, we're gonna do a practice problem off to the side. I'm gonna erase a little right there. I want you to try, let's do 42 times 10 to the power of 1. 42 times 10 to the power of 2. And 42 times 10 to the power of 3. I want you to try this problem, and I'm gonna put a sticky note in my book right away, and we are gonna go over that first thing for groups. Okay, give it a try.